Yeah, I would have my own team that when we receive the recommendations, we review them. But the board would be a group of people who are independent and have I think, frankly, the most important people at that table will be the clients, the pension board representatives, who want to know that this process is legitimate. And so that's another key difference. Rather than just having the 4 or 5 top staff, and this is sort of sums up what the old thing was, the 4 or 5 staff at the AG's office who handle all sorts of other things, doing this is one of their many things. That to me, that does not take this serious enough, and it certainly doesn't weed out the problems we're highlighting at all. Other more questions?
I had a technical question on the last point of full disclosure of the contributions. Would this also include disclosure of money given to county parties, the state party, Democratic Attorney General's Association, or any other? There's multiple routes.
That's a good question, and when I wrote it up, I thought of certainly the county parties, which sometimes are the biggest red flag of the problem, the state and the candidates, as well as I think the Democratic AG is another one. And again, I'm not saying it's in there because doing that means you're doing something wrong. People have a right to support candidates they like. I hope people will support me because they actually want this fixed. That's what I want. I want people who are tired of a system. And just to be clear, I've been in meetings. I go to the Democratic AG conference. I've been in meetings in New York where people have complained to me about how bad Ohio's got, who don't know me from a hole in the wall. And they're not from Ohio. And I want a system that fixes that, and I want people who are interested in doing this work because they're good at it to be part of this process, not because they're buying their way in and they aren't good.
David, do you know if you have received any contributions from anyone who is doing special counsel work now, or is seeking special counsel?
Sure, I would say, of course. I meet with lawyers all the time, and I want their support, and I'm very clear about what I'm going to do with the office. And most of them, I think this is a good thing. So again, the responsibility is on the office holder. And I've always done this, is on the office holder to say, certainly you appreciate support and you need it or you don't even have a chance in these elections. That's the sad reality. But the responsibility is that you have a process that you lay out to the public, to the media, and to all the firms and all the stakeholders, that regardless of where your support came from, and trust me, I'm not going to get almost any support from most of these folks because they're worried the Attorney General will get rid of them. So if you look through my report, you will not find much. You'll find some, but they're not helping me because they're afraid they'll get fired. They're probably right. But in the end of the day, the real issue is, and if all we're talking about here was the Attorney General had contributions to those firms, I wouldn't be standing here. It's because they came on the same day. It's because they have no clear standards. It's because not one of the national firms, see all these national firms, the one thing in common of every national firm that was rejected in this process, $0. Didn't give it. The ones that got picked, huge amounts. Those are the national firms. Now, state firms are a little bit different story. So, yeah, I'll have some, not very much. I mean, my theory of my candidacy, and I know it sounds dramatic for some, that there are actually people who care about who the Attorney General is beyond the people who do work for the office. That's the theory of this candidacy. Now, if you look at the support for Mike DeWine, I bet you by the end of the day it's going to be at least 2/3 or more of the dollars will be from people doing work for the office. We'll get some, but very little. Most of my support is people who care about voting rights and about cleaning up government and about someone who's going to take on the bigger issues of the state. And that's why we get support. And by the way, one final thing on this. I think, again, this is better for these law firms. I can't think of a worse situation than a managing partner of a good law firm sending in a proposal to the AG's office and then getting a call a week later asking for money. I can't think of anything worse for that head of that firm, that they're stuck thinking, listen, everyone's doing it. I either give the contribution and risk looking like I'm part of something I don't want to be part of, Or I say no to the Attorney General and I don't get picked. That's a terrible situation to put folks in. And I think by cleaning up the culture of this place, they will know that they should bid, they won't get called, and they'll be picked if they're good, and if not, maybe next year they'll approve their proposal. I think we have time for one more question.
You said the timing of the contributions is very suspect and a major concern. How long would you prohibit it before and after submitting a bid?
I honestly don't have a specific date I've thought through, but I think it would be well enough in advance of the opening of the bid that it's obviously clear, obviously during the bid, and then well after. The most glaring checks are when it's the same day. You think about the physical process. Someone signs a proposal, and then they sign a check. Are they using the same envelope? So that's the worst. But then it's, even checks that come a week after, it's almost like, oh, thanks for the letter we were picked. Here comes it. That's inappropriate too. So I'd say you provide a big enough buffer that it was clear that it was completely separate.
2 or 3 weeks, maybe?
And more than that.
But ultimately, how does that get to what you're trying to get to? If the AG's campaign fundraiser knows that on a certain date,
right,
then he can send out the letter.
Oh, if that was the only thing I was saying today, you shouldn't be impressed by it, because you're right, there are other issues. But I do think that is the most glaring red flag. To me, the idea that this many people were sending checks around this time makes you realize they think it's important to do so. They think it's important that they need to send a check on the same day or before or after. And sadly, they were right. They all got picked. These other things clean up the other concerns. This doesn't solve everything, but I think it's important. And this is very standard. There are a lot of other contracting opportunities for the state where you have no contact periods, no contribution periods, and it's one element. It doesn't solve it all, but you add all this in together. And I think you have, and I'm open to other suggestions, by the way. This is my ideas. But these certainly eliminate almost any temptation or reality of pay to play. By the way, one other thing I want to say on this. This also eliminates a lot of the need to have lobbying determine these things. We have a lot of lawyers now who have to hire lobbyists at $10,000 a month just to make their case during this process. If you have merit-based standards and an independent review, we don't need that. Again, if I was a law firm who was good at this stuff, I'd be really happy about that news. Why should they pay $10,000 a month to someone to convince the AG they're good when a process actually should be determining they're good on the merits? And that's another aspect that this gets to the bottom.